Welcome back, everybody. I'm Logan Crawford, the journalist and many call an activist to legalize illegal aliens. Jumps the line at a Donald Trump news conference. Big mistake. The Donald put him in his place quickly and escorted him out. Or at least he had a bodyguard do it. Hillary Clinton also takes a page out of the Donald's book and tells Fox News reporter that he's only entitled to one question. Getting tough could be a way to pave your road to the White House. The 2016 presidential race is heating up. Take a listen to Donald at that infamous press conference.
Excuse me, sit down. You weren't called. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Go ahead.
And I saw your show on Sunday, and you pushed him on how 11 million documentary immigrants, and he didn't answer your question, and he didn't answer mine. What I didn't expect is to be thrown out.
Taking Jorge out, brings him out, has him cool off, brings him back in. Donald answers his questions. Let's say hello to the Fresh Outlook think tank. I am joined by Jeanette Hoffman, Republican strategist, Dr. Bart Rossi, political psychologist, Alain Sanders, political science professor at St. Peter's University, and joining us live via Skype, Rich Rubino, political commentator and blogger. You're up in the monitor. Rich, I'm going to begin with you. This is exactly what people want. They want obnoxious reporters to be told, sit down, shut up, wait your turn. This is only going to help Donald Trump. What say you?
I completely concur with that, especially in this election cycle. This is an election cycle where people generally do not like the media. They do not like establishment politicians. Republicans certainly don't like. They don't like Barack Obama. They don't. On the one hand, on the other hand, they don't like John Boehner. They don't like Mitch McConnell, and they certainly don't like the media. So anytime that somebody appears to be heckling Donald Trump, and Donald Trump, of course, handled it like a master in many respects, saying sit down. I don't see how this possibly hurts him. I think this absolutely helps him politically, and just if for any other reason, it continues the media's absolute fascination with Donald Trump, and he really doesn't need to pay for any advertisements. I don't know what he even needs to do other than the airfare to places like Mobile, Alabama, because he's getting all this free media.
I agree, Rich, 100%. I got to tell you, Doc, what I think, we haven't had a high T man in the White House since Ronald Reagan. We've got low T Jeb Bush there giving speeches in Spanish. I think I'm still in the United States. You've got Donald Trump acting like a man, and people crave it. I crave men acting like men nowadays. I'm sure you do too, Jeanette. Right? I mean, it's a whole sissification that's going on.
I'll give Donald Trump this. He is very direct. He says exactly what he thinks. He's a great communicator, and people like him because they want to hear what he's going to say next. And I know Dr. Rossi and I were talking about the debate, the Republican debate a couple weeks ago in the dead month of August, had over 20 million viewers, and that was for Donald Trump because people are fascinated with him. They're fascinated with the way he talks, the way he tells it like it is, and then tells off reporters, and sometimes that's to his detriment. I think it's going to be a problem in the general election, but right now he's the hot thing in the Republican Party.
It's a nice TV show, and people like drama and high drama. And yes, it plays off the public hatred is too strong a word, but the public displeasure with the media. However, having said all that, like any good TV show, people turn it off and come back to reality. And so I think eventually people will come back to reality. Also, you have to understand that elections in the United States are won marginally. They're not won by huge popular majorities. They're won marginally. And so although it looks appealing to sort of tell a reporter to sit down and shut up, basically, you have to understand that that reporter also has allegiance, and there's a huge Hispanic community that has been very upset about his general comments about Mexicans, but also very upset about the way he treated this reporter. So what you have to be careful about is it's okay to stand up and sound bombastic and sound like leadership, but people are confusing bombast with leadership. But you also have to be careful, if you really want to win elections, that you want to add people as opposed to subtracting them. And I think the general effect of that will be a subtraction, not an addition.
Dr. Bart.
Narcissistic individuals and egotistical people often overrate their own intelligence. They overrate themselves, and we're beginning to see that with Trump. He's come out with some policies. They don't make any sense. I mean, you can get financial experts on here. It doesn't make any sense financially. He's discarding all Hispanics. But what about the people who are Americans who are working for Spanish immigrants who form companies? What about all these people who are paying taxes? Social Security and Medicare comes out of every check. What about the nursing homes and the people doing the grass? They get checks. Out of that check, money goes to the government. we're going to deport all of these people and their kids. Yeah. Well, he's discarded a whole section there of immigrants. Blacks aren't going to vote for him. Probably a lot of moderates and independents are going to have a problem with him. Women are going to have a problem with him. His ideas are not sensible. And by the way, it may sound like a conflict, but he's gaining. He's gaining with all of those angry people by doing this. But in a general election, he's playing a colossal losing hand.
Okay, let's get Rich Rubino in on this first, and I'll get to you, Jeanette. Rich, you put on your thinking cap long ago and predicted that Bernie Sanders would be a force to contend with in this campaign. We see that now. In your vast political knowledge, as you look into your crystal ball, is there any way that Donald Trump can put together a winning coalition when you consider that 67 to 70% of this country is white and Christian? He might be able to get a coalition together of those folks.
You mean in the general or in the general election?
General election.
In the general election, yes, it's theoretically possible. The problem that he's going to have is there are a lot of people who normally would vote Republican who are not going to this time. It's the same problem I think, frankly, Barry Goldwater had in 1964. I'm assuming now that Trump and if he were to win the nomination in the general election, if he doesn't try to tone down his rhetoric whatsoever, if he doesn't mitigate it and continues to talk like Goldwater said, extremism, defense of liberty is no vice, moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue. Well, the result of that was the conservatives stuck with him, a lot of young conservatives particularly. But you know what? He wasn't able to build a coalition beyond that. George McGovern ran in 1972. The same thing. He ran in the general election essentially as an unadulterated liberal. He got the support, a very galvanizing support of certainly the liberal community in the country. You know what he won? Massachusetts and Washington, D.C. I mean, it's a true statement that elections are won on the margins, and generally speaking, in the general election, you're supposed to come. It's the Nixon dictum: you run to the right for a Republican, you run to the left for a Democrat in the primary, then you run to the center in the general election. Now, Donald Trump has run to the right in the primaries, and he's gotten a lot of support from, he's speaking for the Republican Federation of Assemblies, who are a group of very discontented Republicans. He's speaking to a lot of very conservative organizations right now. But I don't see in the general election how he necessarily is going to pick up, the soccer mom the soccer mom in, say, in Columbus, Ohio, for example, or for that matter, how he's going to, how he's going to siphon off a few Democratic votes. He could be ceding the center potentially to Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden, so that Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, whoever the Democratic nominee, they'll essentially have the liberals with them they may come kicking and screaming, especially the Bernie Sanders supporters, because they want somebody who's from more of the liberal bloodline of the party. But the people in the center may, like in 1964 or with Lyndon Johnson, or 1972 with Richard Nixon, they weren't necessarily for Johnson or Nixon, but they're more or less scared of the alternative. And that's a problem Donald Trump has. He's not, a standard issue. He's not the standard bearer Republican. He's not the kind of Bob Dole, Gerald Ford Republican.
I'm going to hold you there, Rich.
No, this is a Donald Trump Republican.
Okay, I'm going to bring Jeanette in this. If not Donald Trump, who? It's not going to be Jeb Bush. I'm telling you, Jeb Bush couldn't win for president of my high school class.
Oh, all right. Well, we'll see. First of all, the election is pretty far off right now. But I think what Republicans need to do, and what you're going to see some of them in the primary start doing, including Jeb Bush, and I think Marco Rubio, is they're going to start calling Trump out. His proposals make no sense. You can't propose to deport 11 million people in this country.
Why not make them unemployable?
That's crazy.
Why not make them unemployable?
There's Jeb Bush is
unemployable if you really enforce immigration. Every time I do an acting job, I have to give my passport, my social security card, a picture is taken, I have to sign a sworn document. If I didn't have those documents, if there wasn't real employee verification taking place, I couldn't work. If I couldn't work, I'd have to go back to my ancestors in Ireland or Italy. Right?
Well, I think what you're going to see, some of the Republican candidates who have a lot of policy ideas and comprehensive immigration plans come out and say, look at the economic impact that all these people that are here have on our country. Look at the comprehensive proposals. They're going to start calling out Donald Trump. They largely ignored him in the beginning of this campaign because I thought he would go away, or they thought maybe some of his supporters would come their way. But I think he's a force to be reckoned with, and Republicans need to call him out.
One thing, we're going to switch over Donald Trump and go to Hillary Clinton, okay? But a couple of things. One, you can't call him out because he's going to bloody you so bad, you're never going to pick yourself off the campus. Two, everybody else sounds like they're mealy-mouthed compared to him. All of the comprehensive immigration reform sounds like gobbledygook. Either You break into this country, you sneak into this country, you commit a crime and you're kicked out. That's how the law works. Or we don't have borders, we don't have a country, we're being silently invaded. That's how a lot of people feel. I don't think I'm so far right. I mean, I'm pro-gay marriage, I'm pro-legalization of marijuana, but when it comes to protecting my borders, I want them protected, and nobody says that but Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton is a big fat liar.
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to be on record but that certainly is a perception that many people have, and that is her problem. Her problem is overcoming the public perception of her credibility and so forth. She has to deal with that, and that has become a serious problem, and we talked about that a long time ago. On the issues, when she sticks to the issues, she is doing exactly what she should be doing. She is adding in contrast to Trump, and I think on the issues, she is doing her job properly. But on the credibility factor, she is not, and that is going to be her weak point. If she doesn't deal with that seriously and openly and definitively, that will dog her throughout the campaign, and that could be her
But she
Achilles
has
heel.
no credibility, so there's nothing to defend.
But I mean, one could make the same argument about George Bush. One could make the same argument about Jeb Bush. One could make the same argument about
I don't
Donald
think
Trump.
any of them have the same history that the Clintons do.
But that's true. But any candidate has to sound credible to be president. That is her Achilles.
Let me bring
point.
Bart in on this because we're running out of time.
The email situation. I was looking at that this week, okay? The number of people who have had private servers include Bobby Jindal, Rick Scott in Florida, Walker out in Wisconsin. Many people have used private email accounts, including Colin Powell, Secretary of State, okay? Why? I'm trying to figure out why did they do it? Well, they all have good reasons. They don't want other government agencies to tap into the emails. So they had some good reasons, and so did Hillary Clinton. Do I think she made a mistake? A profound mistake. Given her background, as you say, she should have known, I can't do this. But she didn't, and she made a mistake, and that's contributing to her problematic situation. But I don't think she did anything wrong, and people want to blame her for an email problem.
But perception is reality here, right? And the perception is that Hillary is weak. Democratic establishment, leaders are starting to whisper there's an opening for Joe Biden to come in here because there's not a lot of enthusiasm for Hillary. People think she's going to lose the general election if she were the candidate. And Joe Biden looks a lot better in the polls than Hillary Clinton does right now. So I think there's a lot of...
And I got to tell you, as this guy who is all over the board politically, I don't find Joe Biden that unpalatable. That's the thing. I don't like Hillary because I think she's disingenuous. But Biden, I'm like, he's been around a while. He's tried and true. He's been the vice president for a long time. He was a senator for a long time. His opinions, although they're far left, I think would moderate once they got into the White House.
Well, I think you have to be careful about Biden. People always look better before they enter a presidential race. Jeb Bush looked wonderful before he started to run. So I wouldn't necessarily put the polls pertaining to Biden, give them much credibility. I think he would face a tremendous opposition, and I think despite the doubts about Hillary, Hillary's political machine is really on top of things, and she's following donors, she's doing getting endorsements,
I agree.
And that is very tough to overcome.
And if the Republicans want to win, keep her the Democratic candidate because she's very easily beatable in my opinion. We got 30 seconds, Rich. Tell me about your thoughts on Biden.
It's all about timing, and this is the perfect election for Joe Biden because this is an election when the American people are fed up with the entire system. They think the system is broken. They think that politicians in general are very measured, that they tell people what they want to hear. Joe Biden makes a lot of mistakes and he makes a lot of gaffes. But part of that is because he's unfiltered. And the reason people on the right like Donald Trump, the same reason people on the left will like Joe Biden, particularly in the Rust Belt, is because he essentially speaks his mind. And when you speak your mind, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. When you're very measured like Hillary Clinton or Scott Walker, you're not going to make a lot of mistakes, but you're not going to really galvanize a lot of people either.
And he's also proven himself to be Teflon. That seems to be the case. Let's say thank you to the Fresh Outlook think tank and Rich Rubino as well. Up next, Wall Street has a dark day, but it rebounds. What is the forecast for our financial future? Our experts tackle that question after this.